welcome to Crafternoon with the Kids Craft Workshop. Just a couple of quick things. I know everyone's keen to get cracking on their clock, which we're making today, but just a few quick things to say which will make things a bit easier as we go along. So first of all, this is the clock we made. And as you can see, it's really handy for kids in primary learning to tell the time. It's been really useful with my son to move the hands around himself, or I can set the hands and he can read the time. Really helpful. So that's what we're aiming for today. So we've made the whole thing. We cut out our numbers from cardboard, and we decided that we would cover our numbers in coloured paper or pictures from magazines, just to make it a bit more interesting. But that was a little bit fiddly, and you could totally adapt this project for younger kids or kids that are a bit more impatient. If any of you kids just think, oh, it's just taking too long, there's quicker ways to do it. So you could cut your numbers out of cardboard and you could just colour those in, which would look a bit like this. And I think that actually looks brilliant too. And if you wanted to make it even easier and even speedier, you could just draw your numbers onto cardboard if you've got really little kids, and you could just colour it in, and that would be really fun too. But we just decided to do something a bit harder. So obviously you can adapt it for what age or speed you want. There was one other thing I was going to say, which was just about how we made our hands. Now, the bit that works in the middle, you're going to need, I'll put in a minute the picture of everything you need, but you've probably seen the list. But I'll put a picture up in a minute just so you can have a quick check. But the thing you're going to need to make it is either a paper clip or a bit of garden wire. This is called coated wire twist. Also looks like this, but this stuff is brilliant. I don't know how people cope with this without this in their life. It's really bendy and it's so brilliant for craft projects. So if you've got any of that garden wire twist, you're going to find that really handy. Garden centres, household shops, you can probably order it online. That's going to be really useful. So when we made our first one, you will see right at the end, Lucas is having a go at reading the clock, and we had used a very small paper clip, which was all we had to hand, and it was quite hard to bend. This is a bigger paper clip, and this one is pretty bendy. So that one will work. But if you've got any of this, it's just a bit more bendy again, and that's just a bit easier to work with. But just use what you have. It will work, whatever. So I hope that you guys will have lots of fun making and that your clock will be really useful. Another quick thing to mention, cardboard. I probably think about cardboard more than most people, but just wanted to say, if you're using this kind of cardboard, this was great, this is what we used. It's much easier to get your wire through. If you are only using cereal packets, can't really get the wire through there, take a really long time, and then you might need to get your grown-up to use the scissors, the pointy end, so you'll have to get a bit of grown-up help for that. Okay, so hope you have fun, enjoy your making, check you've got everything, and we'll meet you back here shortly to get cracking. Hi, right, ready to get started? Got all your stuff? Okay, so this is, just so you know, this is the quick version. So we're just making exactly the same clock that I made with my son in the other clock video, but I'm just doing it on my own, speed things up. So I'm just going to whip through it, just because I know some of you would rather just have the information and get on with it. Okay, so we started by taking our big piece of cardboard and our dinner plate, and we just drew around that, a big circle, and then we cut that out with our scissors, obviously. So Lucas cut that out for us all the way around. so that we ended up with just a nice cardboard circle. Now, I just realised the other day that to save yourself even more time, you could, if you're having pizza, just save the pizza base. I don't know why I didn't think of it sooner. Perfect. So next time you're having pizza, if you want to just hold on to a couple of those, that will save you a lot of time. So once you've got your cardboard circle, we then took some coloured paper. You don't have to, obviously, if you don't have any coloured paper, you could paint it. Cardboard dries quite fast because it sucks all the water in, but obviously then you have to wait for it to dry. Or you could cover it with a magazine, or you could get felt tips out. I would be a bit wary about doing too much colouring in, because I think it gets a bit too busy once you've got, if you have too much pattern on your background and numbers and you're trying to get the kids to read the time, it's just too much going on. So best to keep it simple, keep it plain if you can. Just keep it white or keep it brown, doesn't even matter really, but it just looks a bit more fun, a bit more colourful if you can. So we put our circle on our paper, we drew around that, we cut that out into a nice colour, and we used a blue, and I've also got a yellow that we did as well. So we've now got our circle with our colour on, okay? And we then started to write down our numbers. Nice big black marker, if you can, felt tip in a dark colour, just so it's really clear and easy to read while you're cutting them out. Can be a bit fiddly, and for the kids I would recommend cutting each number out into a square like this, and then give that to the kids to cut out. A word of warning about scissors: if you've got little kids and you're using really small scissors, I can't currently find our really small scissors, but the really small kiddie scissors, some cardboard can be quite hard going to cut out, so try and maybe get something that's a bit easier. The pizza bases are quite thin, and some cardboard just seems to be easier to go through than others, so you just have to try it and see. Or you can of course use a cereal packet. That's going to be great. Old cereal packet, nice thin cardboard, might be a bit easier to cut around little ones. Okay, so another thing just to mention is that before you draw all your numbers and cut them all out, just do a few and then have a look at how they're going to fit on your clock face, because it's very easy to make your numbers a bit too big and then realise actually they're not all going to fit onto your clock. Really annoying. So cut a few out, I would say, and then start to put them on. Just have a look. You might realise you need to redraw them a bit smaller, but at least you'll know before you've cut every single number out. Okay, so once you've cut your numbers out, you can then decide what you're doing for pattern on your numbers. So we covered all our numbers in coloured paper, but it was a bit fiddly, to be honest. Lots of fun. Lucas really enjoyed it, but it did take us a while. So we what we did with ours was, excuse me, we had a pile of coloured bits of paper, which we did in advance. So we had some colours, coloured papers, and we also had some bits of magazine that we had cut out before. We went through some old magazines. Kids, make sure you ask before you cut up people's magazines. So we got some of those. Now, putting your coloured paper on your number does need a bit of thinking about. You want to put the right side down on the table. So right side, the colour you want. So I want the purple. I'm going to put that face down on the table. Can you see that? I'm then going to take my number, and that is the side I want with the black line on. So I'm going to put that face down, and I'm going to put my glue on the front of the number, and then I'm going to stick that down so that when I cut it out, it will be the right way round. That's a very easy thing to get wrong. It sounds ridiculous, but you'd be surprised how easy that is to make a mess of when you got lots of kids rampaging around and you're not really concentrating. So stick that down, and then you will see that when you cut that out, that will be the right way round. Should have done something a bit easier to show you, shouldn't I? Like number 1. Never mind. So obviously, if you don't want to spend ages sticking, or if you've got very small children, because it is a bit fiddly, or if you've got slightly impatient kids, or you're just not feeling that enthusiastic about your project today, I don't know. It depends how, if you've had your coffee, or you know, if you didn't have the right kind of cereal this morning, maybe you're just not in the mood for spending hours doing fiddly bits of paper. So as you can see, that's now the right way round. When I stick that on, that will be my 3. Sorry, so if you don't feel like doing the coloured bits of paper on your numbers, a much easier way to do it is just to cut out the cardboard and to colour in the cardboard. That looks really nice too, I think. So you could get your felt tips out once you've cut out the cardboard and just do some really good colouring in. Try to make each number a bit different. So you might want to try and line them all up and then do different colours on each numbers, just so you don't have a whole load that are all the same colour. Okay, so once you are happy with your numbers and you've got those all stuck on okay, and remember when you're cutting out the numbers for the clock, you actually need 5 number 1s. Yes, it's a lot, I know. So once you've done that, the next thing to do, if you have a cardboard from a cereal packet, that's going to be really useful for your clock hands, which are next. So the next thing you want to do is to draw yourself a couple of clock hands. Can you see those? And draw them onto your cardboard, cut them out. Now, top tip, make sure you do them a bit longer than you think, because it's much easier to cut them down. If you make it too short and it looks a bit silly or doesn't quite point enough, you can't read it very well, it's a bit of a pain, you have to do the whole thing again. If you make it a bit too long, you can just chop a bit off the end, much easier. So once you have drawn around those, there are a couple of different ways that you can do your arrows. Now we decided to sellotape our arrows to some cardboard circles. Now that is partly because we used our bit of wire to make the holes in the cardboard, and it's quite easy for the kids to wiggle that through and give it a wiggle, keep pressing, eventually it will pop through. And it's a bit safer, to be honest, because otherwise, in order to make the hole, if you don't want to cut out the circles, you can of course make a hole straight into your arrows, which is a bit quicker, but I think you need to get the grown-ups to do that, because you need to put your scissors apart and then make your hole like this, and it could be a little bit dangerous, I think. Also, you might end up with holes in your table, which you might not be that pleased about. So you might need to get the chopping board out to do that, or get your grown-up to do it. So those are 2 options. So you could put holes straight into your arrows, or kids, you could cut out circles and then you can just sellotape the arrows on, and you can then get your bit of wire, make a hole through the cardboard. Okay, so you're going to need 2 arrows, 1 short arrow, 1 long arrow, minute hand, hour hand, and 1 more circle, which is going to go on top, which we coloured ours in just to make it look nice. I think it just finishes it off a bit. And when you get to making holes, you need holes in everything. so that you can thread it through your wire. So both hands are going to need a hole. Our hole's in the cardboard. It's a bit hard to see, but it's there. For your top piece of cardboard, we've got 2 holes. So to put it all together, an exciting moment, what we did was take your paper clip or your bendy wire, garden wire, perfect for this. Or if you can't find either of those, you could maybe use, if you've got any of those old wire bound notebooks, they sometimes have a metal bit of wire that might work. An old paper clip, the bigger ones are better because they're much bendier, or a bit of garden wire is what we used for our second clock, which was much better. We made the first one with a smaller paper clip. It was very hard to bend. Okay, so anyway, take your bit of wire, you're going to bend it into a nice U shape, a very skinny long U. We're going to push that through the top piece of cardboard, or you could use an old button if you have one, that might look quite nice. Nice big button. And then I'm just going to take those 2 bits of wire and I'm just going to give them a twist. Can you see? Now, if you are using the paper clip, it is a bit harder to twist it, but it will work. It will work. It's just, as you can see here, it's a bit harder and you might end up with a slightly lumpier bit at the back, but it won't matter. It will work. And if that's what you've got, then that's fine. Use that. Use whatever you've got. Okay. So we're now going to try and push those bits of wire together and we're going to thread on our hands. Now, I think it's better if you have the hour hand as the last one on, but I suppose it doesn't matter too much. The hour hand moves less, that's all I'm thinking. So I put your longer hand, minute hand on next, then put on your, whoops, short hand. That goes on next. So I've got it all together, and we're now going to push that whole thing through the holes in our clock. And I'm just going to turn it over and I'm going to press those bits of wire into opposite directions. On the back it now looks like that, and on the front it looks like this, and that will now move around. Now I think to be doubly safe you could sellotape these bits of wire down just for extra security, but it still works without doing that actually, but I think over time it might be a good idea. Now another thing that you might find helpful is the hand that is at the bottom, the short hand, because we made little circles for it to go on, we made a double circle for that bottom one, and that just meant it raised it up a tiny bit more so that the hands hopefully should stay above the numbers. The long hand should sit above the numbers. It's another reason to put the long hand at the top, because it has to swing around a lot and it's not going to knock into all those numbers and try and bump them off. Okay, so this was really useful as a time telling tool, and there's your clock. So I hope you enjoy it, and yeah, have lots of fun, and we'll see you again soon for another project. Okay, happy making!